What is up, everybody? Skratch coming up with another Raid Shadow Legends video. Today we got Saph from the HH Gaming here on the channel with us. And we're gonna talk about a couple of things that Plarium doesn't want you to know. Plarium definitely hit these things pretty well. It's pretty astronomical to hit on them, but they're things that people should know, and we're here to cover them for all of you guys. What's up, Saph? How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks for having me again. I'm here with more little sort of secrets and tidbits in the code.
Absolutely, absolutely. A pleasure to have you on the channel. And guys, make sure you head over and subscribe to his channel. The link will be in the pinned comment below. So basically, for a while, guys, a clanmate of mine, Arcelan, he's been telling us you cannot pull the same champion back to back, right? And we were like, no, we've seen it in screenshots, mainly legendaries, right? That's kind of like what we covered. That was the main topic, but then we discovered other things. But he was always saying that you cannot pull the same legendary back to back in the same time pull, or you cannot have the same legendary one after another. A different one needs to be in between them. And I was like, no, I've seen plenty of screenshots. Probably a lot of you guys saw plenty of screenshots with the same legendary in the same time pull, right? Or people pulling the same legendary back to back. But it only works when you have guaranteed events. And it's very important for a lot of you guys to know this and be aware of this secret, because this is something that Plarium doesn't want you to know. And I actually checked with Saph as well to kind of like reconfirm it. He was able to check all that information in the coding, right? So you've seen that there is something like this in play, actually.
Yes, there is. Yeah. So every shard in the is all got like its own little array container, and it kind of tells you like the mercy system is in there. We get information about like sort of the odds that each champion can have, and then it has obviously things like individual. I don't know whether it's the actual odds calculated, but it essentially lists all the different champion heroes you can get from that shard and the individual odd of that champion. But what we discovered yesterday, I was on your stream on Twitch, just chilling out, and we were looking at whether or not this was true. So when you go into this array, it's got some different values. So you have those individual odds in the thing, and so you can kind of see they get updated every single time a new hero is added. But for the Ancient, for the Void, and for the Sacred Shards, not so much the Mysteries, but the other ones, there's actually an array entry in there that says deny repeat last. And it's valued at 1. So it's basically like a yes-no variable. So what we think that basically means there, and we can't always be 100% certain because we're interpreting the way that the game is coded, but we have a pretty good grasp. It basically means if you summon a specific champion, you cannot then summon the same champion from the same shard to back. You have to be able to summon something different. So that's, for example, if you pull a Kaimar today from an ancient shard, you can't then go get another Kaimar straight away. You will be denied that opportunity. And it's actually quite an important factor. And it was for something that your situation that you're in right now, Skratch, right? Exactly,
because it's gonna be, how he mentioned, is pretty unimportant on the general cases, right? Like on the day-to-day basis, you're not really gonna think, okay, I'm gonna pull a Kaimar now, I'm gonna get another one straight after. You know, it's not something that is gonna happen a lot of very often. But in some cases, like I'm in this situation right now. Tomorrow, we're gonna have a 10x for Duchess Lilitu and Lady Kimi from Sacred Shards, okay? So this doesn't interconnect from shard to shard. It's based the denial for each type of the shard. So if I'm gonna pull out my Raid Shadow Legends helper right here, if you guys can notice, the last champion that I pulled from Sacred Shards is Duchess, right? So I pulled this one a few days ago. I randomly opened a few Sacreds and I got a Duchess. Now we have a 10x on Duchess. It's impossible for me to open shards now and go for Duchess, okay? Because I'm not gonna get her as the first legendary. I'm gonna waste shards trying to get her, and it might sound unimportant, but for a lot of people out there that got lucky enough to get one of these champions, and then you see the 10x next to a guaranteed or some very spicy event that will make you want to pull shards, not necessarily this current event that we have right now, you're not going to be aware of it, and you're going to go like a blind man, and you're going to be like, I'm going to open because I'm going to get her. And then guess what? You're not going to get her because Plarium has a coding that it made it impossible for you to get the same champion back to back from the same shard. So a different champion needs to come in between before you can actually pull another Duchess as an example. I'm showing you Duchess as an example because that's what I have on mine, and tomorrow is the 10x, you know? So even if I would want to go for another Duchess, it's pointless because the first legendary that I'm going to get out of it is not going to be Duchess. And that works the same for Sacreds, for Ancients, for Voids, works the same for Epics, works the same for Rares, works the same for Legendaries, okay? So that's why you're never gonna see the same 2 rare champions on the same time pool back to back. It's gonna be a gap in between by a different champion. And how Seth
so there is some context there, really, if we think about it, that for you in your situation, because you know you're near Mercy, obviously not for Sacreds necessarily, but say like you were pulling for Kaimar today, and instead of Kaimar, we had a Herndig times 10. Just as a theoretical example, you're on 206 shards there, so that means you're right on your Mercy. Any Ancient shard could be pretty much a guaranteed chance to get a legendary, right? Because that's how Mercy's system works. We know after 200 you really start getting to that point of you're going to get a legendary. So in that sense, if there was a Herndig times 10 and you were like, I really want a Herndig, I'm 1 away from +4, but you've just pulled a Herndig, there is no possible way for you to get that Herndig on that times 10. It will always be a different champion because you've just got Herndig. So that's the situation that this is relevant. Now, obviously, we know for Ancient Shards, the odds of you getting a specific legendary is very, very small. It's like 4%. On a times 10, it's even smaller. It's maybe like 0.07% or something like that on a normal situation. So in that sense, it is pretty bad it's pretty inconsequential from an Ancient Shard. But the thing which makes it more relevant is Void Shards. We've got a Riho and we've got a Raka Viletide. Now, obviously, Raka is probably not in many people's accounts, but Riho might be. So if you're going into that thinking, you know what, I'd really love a second Riho, or I'm close to a +4 Riho, or any of these different concepts, and you know that you're like a couple of shards away from Mercy, well, in that sense, you're far more likely to get the Riho because a Void times 10 is much more forgiving because there's a lot less Void legendaries, and it could actually form like a bit of a problem because you might be going in there thinking, I really want that Riho, but actually not aware that you cannot physically get that Riho. So in that sense, it is relevant. But in most scenarios, as you said, it's probably not going to actually be something that is going to impact you on a day-to-day basis because the odds of you actually getting 2 champions of the same thing back to back
are very
quite
small.
Low anyway.
Yeah.
It's very small. If you are, you're pulling some sort of crazy luck and you should go to Las Vegas straight away and start gambling because that is clearly where you know where you need to be.
Yeah, it's just that they're just hidden things in the game that they might not affect the majority of the players. They might never affect you as an idea, but it's good to know that they're there because you know the limits. You know if you should be a fool or stay in school basically and don't do it, you know, because it's kind of like the way it works. Now I know it. You know, I'm not gonna go and try to open shards for Duchess, regardless of how much I would want to get her at +4. And for Voids, how you mentioned, is actually becoming more relevant because a lot of times the majority of people won't do it, but people that I do spend some money on shards, you know, and those are the majority that will get disappointed, you know, because they're not able to empower their champions when we have 10x's, and a lot of time they do 10x and 2x at the same time, and people are trying to get multiple copies in the same day without knowing that there is this thing blocking them.
Now, the important thing to note here is obviously it is rarity and shard specific. So if you wanted to get a Duchess from an Ancient Shard, but you just got a Duchess from Sacred, you can still get it from the Ancient Shard. It only gets locked on a shard type, rarity type combination. So you can't get the same rarity champion from the same shard back to back. So you can get it from different shards, which only really applies for non-void. With void, you can only get it from one shard anyway, so it's irrelevant. But that is the only other distinction. But it is it's a number of things. Like I've done a couple of videos on the channel now about how Plarium have not been very clear on some things or have been obscure on other things, and it actually can have an impact to you in the game, and it's stuff that you should know about. And this is just another one of those things that is not visible to anyone. You know, we've got a whole description about how the Mercy system works. That is pretty much fair and clear and understanding. That's good. There really should be just a sentence in there saying, FYI, you can't summon, oh god, you just got an Ancient Shard lightning deal.
Check this out. Goodbye.
Actually not a terrible deal though.
Was not, but yeah, I'm
expecting we're going to see a lot of those. But in the Mercy system, we should just have a sentence in there that literally just says, FYI, you cannot summon the same champion from the same shard back to back.
Exactly. They should mention it so people know it. But a lot of things like this are not very transparent. That's why we don't have a Mercy system in the game. That's why we're using the Raid Shadow Legends Helper or different applications to track our Mercy. That's what I have right here, guys. I'm always keeping it open when I'm opening shards, and like this, it tracks what I'm opening. Like, for example, we're gonna open these 2 ancient shards. We're gonna bring a Chimar home in my dreams. But basically, it's gonna show me what's my last legendary, my last epic, and how far away I'm from the Mercy to reach the 200 shards. And then it's gonna calculate the percentage. But we used to be able to kind of like see this somehow directly from the game to track it back after, but they instantly killed it. You see it move from 18 to 20 alone. But
yeah, I understand why they killed it, because what they were saying was the location within the code should really never have been exposed to the front end in any fashion, because it included payment information and was basically, we found a security risk that shouldn't exist. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they shouldn't have created a different way to show it in game. Like, realistically, I should be able to go into my portal and be able to see my Mercy status.
absolutely.
You know,
Like
you're telling me
games.
how it works, but you're not telling me where it is. And it's not like I couldn't just track it in RSL Helper or on a spreadsheet. So it's not like it's not possible to do. So I understand why they took it away. That's not a negative against Plarium. They're obviously very important to ensure that everyone's account is secure and safe. But that doesn't necessarily give them a free kind of pass to not then put something back in its place to actually allow it. So... and generally, I think the Mercy system is quite forgiving, apart from Sacreds. I don't really understand the point of the Mercy system on Sacreds, because it's just
Ridiculous.
so pointless. It needs to be like 10%,
Yeah.
probably, if I'm being honest, not 2%. It's ridiculous. It's so bad.
Absolutely. And I feel like for the voids, it should be knocked down to 100 voids or 150. It's just ridiculous because they're so overpriced, you know? And it's awful, man. Like, I'm telling you from experience, because 95% of the times whenever I'm pulling legendary from ancients, from sacreds, from voids, I'm hitting the Mercy, going over 200 ancients or voids, going over 12 sacreds to get a legendary 95% of the times. So that is awful, an awful experience for the majority of people that are going through the same thing. You know, it can get unlucky. Sometimes you get lucky and you pull 2-3 legendaries back to back, but that is how I mentioned, not even a 5%. You know?
The Stultus run that I did, I just before we went for the 150, I'd pulled Glizea. So therefore my Mercy was like maybe 10 ancients in. I think I got to like the 145th shard before I got another legendary, which was a dupe ghost spawn. Then I obviously got the Stultus on top. So yes, you're always kind of going deep into the Mercy before you get any improved odds, which, hey, at least we have a Mercy system, so we've got to be positive about those things. But yeah, these things just need to be clarified in games so that players know what they're walking into and understand it better, because the game does a pretty terrible job of explaining to people how things work in the general sense. And even some of their videos that they've put out recently, some of them are good. The last one they did on buffs and debuffs is pretty good. There was no errors or any issues in there. But the first one they did, you know, it's misleading. It doesn't go into enough detail to explain to players how things work. And those things are relevant because people will invest resources into things if they're not aware of how things work correctly, then get disappointed when it doesn't work. For example, the Revenant path, if we want to look at something that was recently a problem, it should have been very clear and upfront that you needed to go the inner path to get the key. Players shouldn't be getting halfway down the left-hand side path and going, why can't I get my key? It's just a waste of resources and it's not really fair. And they haven't really done any compensation to explain that. You know, they've explained that
it's not a visual error, come on, dude. Like, this
I can give them the pass that it may be an issue with the way that they construct the path, in the sense that they couldn't create a chain. Fine, that's not a problem. But then you need to be telling people up front in advance, FYI, if you want the key, go to the inner path. They should know about it before they release it, not retrospectively go, sorry guys, was a visual error and restrictive in the way that we build the event path.
Yeah, definitely. They need to be
what are you going to do about that?
Transparent on those things, yeah.
So it's one of those things that I think sometimes people will come across and say, oh, Plarium are terrible people. We're not saying that they're terrible for not giving this information out to people. What we're saying is save yourself the negativity and the hassle by telling us up front and in advance, because you're not hurting anyone by being, you know, more transparent, but you are by being less transparent.
Absolutely.
We're trying to help here. We're trying to give people more information so they can make the right decision, so it doesn't come back on Plarium later on going, why didn't I know this?
Yeah, that's how it is. But before we're ending it, I know we covered this topic many times on the channel. A lot of people cover this topic. It's time for them to change the 10x chances. How do you feel about the wish list, which is 2x, comparing it with the 10x, and just comparing the 10x in the game being completely pointless? The wish list becomes very irrelevant. What's your take on it?
my take. So I did a video about a couple of weeks ago looking at the actual math of the times 10 because I have all the copies of all the versions of the game data from back since I think January 2021. Not so much obviously the game like client, but actually just like the data. So we could look at like how many champions were back in 2021 to now. And we have reached the point now where we probably need a times 15 if we want to be sort of similar to what we were back then. So the wish list doubling the odds of you getting one specific champion is okay. It's a benefit, but I don't know if it actually like massively gives a big difference. Like it's not going to get you back to the times 10 number.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I think it needs to be more than just give us a wish list. I actually think now we probably need in summoning side of things, a wish list on top of an improved summoning odds setup.
Especially now with the empowerment and just needing so many copies of the champions will definitely be great for them to step their game a bit up. They mentioned ages ago, like it's been over 1 year ago. Yeah, it's been over 1 year ago. I can say it with confidence now that they've told me we are changing the 10Xs. We're going to improve them. That was after my Hegemon fiasco, right? When I opened 1 million shards to get everyone else from the entire game except Hegemon. Of course, I've told them this is BS, you know, like I messaged them directly saying it, not only like they need to adjust the issue because a lot of people are having issues with these situations. You're not getting the 10X champion and they should find a way of doing it. And they said, we're working on improving it. It still didn't happen. Probably it's not going to happen, but I just wanted to kind of like mention it out there.
I think we do need to impress upon them that they've added substantial amount more champions. So it's the biggest issue this comes down to is player catch up. Obviously, the players go through a life cycle of they play the game, they get really addicted, they probably spend too much money, then they spend less money, and they either continue to play the game because of some cost fallacies and being, you know, I've been playing this for so long now, I don't want to quit because I'm so invested. You're getting gold.
Oh, we got a robot.
It's not terrible.
Decent.
Oh, yeah, you take it. So the problem is for players. Oh my god!
Oh,
am I like?
There we go.
I'm trying to explain a point here, and you're like double pulling gold all over the place. I'm a tier 1, no doubt.
You gotta come. You gotta come around more often, bro. Like when
yeah,
I'm
I'm
doing this.
bringing the luck here. I do. Everyone does tell me I have insane luck for souls, so maybe I'm just like a lucky charm, right?
It might
I
be.
do have like a 6-star Seer, a 5-star Baron. You know, we are kind of rocking it. But I think the issue is like, look at your account here as an example. Now, obviously, you spend a bit of money, which is fine. But if I'm a new player coming in, because obviously there's a drive for new players all the time from Plarium, there is no way now with the additional amount of champions that I can ever, as a new player, catch up to you so that I can be on the same competitive level as you. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean I need to devalue your competitive level to make their competitive level better, but I should be given mechanics in which I can, hopefully at some point in the realistic future, get to your level of an account. Because there is a cap to all these things. Like, you know, eventually you're going to get a 6-star blessing. Eventually you're going to get a +4. But if I can, like, if the odds of me getting a +4 continuously diminish every single month that they add new champions and they add new things, then the sort of goal of me reaching platinum and top there is almost impossible. And therefore it leads me down a path of why should I even bother to begin with? And that's a negative for Plarium. They don't want players coming into the game going, how can I get you? I can't get close to that. Because some of these players, like me and you combined, we've been playing for years. We were pulling champions when the odds were really low. So we were pulling champions when there wasn't a dupe system. We just kept the duplicates because we're like, oh, they'll do something eventually. They did. So people could instantly +4 their Rotuses or +4 their Kaimars because those champions have been in the game for such a long time. And they're trying to rectify that by bringing out power creep and powerful champions like Acrizia, like Yumiko, and Nekret the Great's reasonably new. He's only been out for about a year and a half.
A year and a half, yeah, around there, yeah.
So they're almost like trying to counter the fact that everyone's sitting on a +4 by bringing out these new Void Legendaries. But that doesn't really solve the underlying problem that these +4 champions can still overpower most Legendaries. You know, +4 Cupidus is there. We're just looking at the tier list here in terms of, you know, some of them. I think one of the IPR guys has got like +4 Rota 6-star fully awakened with a +3 Siphi or a +5 Duchess. It's just it's insane. It's crazy to think that you just cannot catch up here.
You know, you need to spend crazy amount of money for it to catch up. Yeah, definitely.
Like someone like in my account right now, and I've said this a few times, like I don't have the arena meta. So every month that I continue not to have the arena meta, it becomes even more complicated and difficult, even for my level of account, to even consider being able to compete in arena, because if I want to try and get like I can't even get one Kymar, let alone 4 to get a +4. I can't even get one Siphi or Rotus. So, you know, the odds of me getting the champion diminish. So we need something from Plarium to kind of restore the balance a little bit so that players do feel like they have a pathway to get into the top end of the game where it's competitive and it can be fun. If you're just going to limit it to these accounts, then all you're going to do is continuously encourage account spending and selling, which is against terms and conditions, but it's going to happen.
What they've done, so what Plarium did in this aspect is to bring the elements of RNG. So basically, skill will not always defeat new players, will not always defeat noob players. And I'm not talking noobs just because you're new to the game. I'm talking about people that just spend money, they have no idea what's happening in the game, but they go and win fights because of RNG. So that's why we're getting so much RNG in the game. I definitely wanna make a video on this topic at some point, so maybe we're gonna cover that together. But it's just the bloom effect, you know, and from where it started and how it ended up being in games and why is in actually in the game. But this is one of the thing that they're doing to kind of like counter that, because a level 70 account can beat my arena defense, you know, or it can beat pretty much every arena defense in the game.
And you get the right form of RNG, anything
exactly,
happen,
and
right?
the right sets and stuff like that, and you can definitely do it. But yeah, I feel like we pretty much covered our points here, Seth. A pleasure to have you on the channel. Remember, guys, I cannot get another Duchess from Sacreds tomorrow. So a lot of people that will ever end up in a similar situation, remember it. You cannot pull the same legendary back-to-back from the same type of shard, okay? How I mentioned, probably is not going to affect a lot of you guys out there, but it's good to know there are things that Plarium doesn't want us to know. Seth, a pleasure to have you on the channel, guys. Make sure you head over and subscribe to his channel. Much love. Appreciate all of you guys watching, and I'll catch you all soon in the next one. Peace.